Today, we are going to discuss Buddhist path of liberation as described in the Theravada tradition of Buddhism. Now, Buddhism is the teaching of Lord Gautama Buddha, who lived and taught in India during the 6th and 5th century before Christ. The Buddha was born into a royal family as Prince Siddhartha. He was born in a place called Lumbini that was situated in present Nepal. Being a royal prince, he grew up with royal comforts and he was prevented from seeing any human suffering. It is said that some wise men made a prediction that the prince will one day leave home, become an ascetic, and will become a Samma Sambuddha. So his father, King Suddhodana, made sure that the prince was not exposed to any kind of human suffering. But by the age of 29, he has seen human suffering in various forms. And that shocked him and alarmed him. So he wanted to find a way out of human suffering. And at age 29, he left home to become a homeless ascetic. For the next 6 years, ascetic Siddhartha practiced severe austerity and self-mortification because at that time there was a belief in India that severe austerity and self-mortification can bring enlightenment and liberation from suffering. And during those 6 years, he was supported by 5 ascetic companions. During the 6 years, ascetic Siddhartha became severely emaciated. At one point, he nearly died. But after 6 years, he realized that self-mortification and severe austerity is not going to bring enlightenment to him. So he gave it up. And then sitting under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, India, he meditated on in-breath and out-breath. And that's called Anapanasati Bhavana. And he was successful. He managed to eradicate all his mental defilements through meditation and to realize the Four Noble Truths with no assistance from a teacher. So he attained enlightenment as a Samma Sambuddha when he was 35 years old. Soon after his enlightenment, he decided to teach his doctrine that he discovered during the process of enlightenment to the 5 ascetics who supported him during the 6 years of self-mortification. And at that time, they were staying in the deer park in Varanasi, India. Buddha traveled there and delivered his first sermon called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. That means turning of the wheel of truth to the 5 previous ascetic companions. Now, the 4 noble truths that the Buddha realized and taught to others, the truth of suffering, dukkha satcha, truth of the origin of suffering, samudaya satcha, truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha satcha, and the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering, Magga Satya. Now, the first noble truth is that there is unavoidable, inevitable, and universal suffering. And Buddha said, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, grief, pain, despair, suffering, association with what one dislikes is suffering, separation from what one likes is suffering, not getting one desires, suffering. And the Buddha said, in short, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. Now, the 5 aggregates of clinging are the material form, rupa, feeling, vedana, perception, sanya, mental formation, sankhara, and consciousness, vijnana. And the Buddha said that what we call a person or an individual consists of these 5 aggregates, and all the 5 aggregates are nothing but suffering. The second noble truth is the cause, the origin of suffering, and that is craving, tanha. Buddha described 3 types of craving. Craving for sensual pleasures, kama tanha, craving for becoming or existence, bhava tanha, and craving for non-becoming or non-existence, that is vibhava tanha. The third noble truth is that the suffering can be completely eradicated, ceased, and that is attainment of Nibbana in this life itself. And one attains Nibbana by totally eradicating and abandoning the craving. So Nibbana is the sublime state beyond all suffering, and it's a state of complete peace, calmness, and happiness. And when one attains Nibbana, there's no more rebirth, and that's the end of the cycle of birth and death, samsara. Now, the fourth noble truth the Buddha described as the path leading to the end of suffering. And the Buddha called it a middle path, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path. This Noble Eightfold Path provides the practical steps that one needs to follow and cultivate to attain enlightenment and liberation from suffering. Noble Eightfold Path consists of 8 factors: right view, samadhi, right intention, samma sankappa, right speech, samma vacha, right action, samma kammanta, right livelihood, samma ajiva, right effort, samma vayama, right mindfulness, samma sati, and right concentration, samma samadhi. Now, right view, samadhi, is the correct understanding of the 4 noble truths that we have already described. And right intention, samma sankappa, has 3 aspects, and that is right intention of renunciation, that is to counter the wrong intention of desire for sensual pleasures, right intention of goodwill, and that is to counter the wrong intention of ill will, and right intention of harmlessness, and that is to counter the wrong intention of harmfulness. Right speech has 4 aspects, that is to abstain from false speech, abstain from malicious backbiting, abstinence from harsh, blameful, hurtful speech, and abstinence from gossip, vain talk, or idle chatter. Right action, Samma Kammanta, has three aspects, and that is to abstain from killing any living beings, to abstain from stealing, and to abstain from sexual misconduct. Right livelihood, Samma Ajiva, and that is to earn one's livelihood by ethical, legal, and honest means. And in that process, one should not cause any harm or suffering to any other living beings, either directly or indirectly. For lay disciples, the Buddha suggested that they need to avoid 5 particular traits, and that's trading in living beings, including human beings and animals, trading in arms and weapons, trading in intoxicants such as alcohol and illicit drugs, trading in poisons, and trading in meat. Right efforts, Samma Vayama. There are 4 aspects to right effort. That is to make an effort to prevent the arising of any unwholesome mental states that have not arisen, to make an effort to abandon, eradicate any unwholesome mental states that have already arisen, make an effort to develop wholesome mental states that have not arisen, and make an effort to maintain and further develop any wholesome mental states that have already arisen. Right mindfulness, Samma Sati, and this refers to 4 foundations of mindfulness. And Buddha has described 4 foundations of mindfulness in the Satipatthana Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya. That's a collection of the Buddha's middle-length discourses. And the 4 foundations of mindfulness are contemplation of the body, Kaya-anupassana, contemplation of feelings, Vedana-anupassana, contemplation of the mind, Chitta-anupassana, and contemplation of the mind objects, Dhamma-anupassana. Right concentration, Samma Samadhi, the concentration or one-pointness of the mind through concentration meditation. And in the Buddhist literature, 40 meditation objects have been described. And through this meditation, a meditator can attain 8 deep mental absorptions called jhanas. And the concentrated mind can then be used to practice what's called insight or vipassana meditation in order to gain insight, knowledge, and enlightenment. Now, from a practical standpoint, the 8 factors can be divided into 3 groups of practice. The first group is the group of morality, sila, and that consists of right speech, right action, and right livelihood. The second group is concentration, samadhi, that consists of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The third group is wisdom, panya, that consists of right view and right intention. So the Buddhist path of liberation, that is the Noble Eightfold Path, consists of morality, sila, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya. Let us first look at moral discipline, sila. And moral discipline is the basic foundation of the Buddhist path of liberation. Now, concentration and wisdom can only be developed based on morality. So without proper morality, right concentration cannot be developed. And without right concentration, wisdom cannot be developed. So moral discipline is avoidance of any unwholesome, unskillful verbal and physical actions, and engagement in wholesome and skillful actions. And for the lay disciples, the minimum ethical code is what's called Panchasila, that is 5 precepts. And that is to abstain from killing any living beings, to abstain from stealing, to abstain from sexual misconduct, to abstain from lying, and to abstain from any alcohol and intoxicants. Lay disciples can also observe higher sets of precepts, like the 8 precepts, on special days like full moon days. And the 8 precepts are, again, to abstain from killing any living beings, to abstain from stealing. And the third precept is abstain from any sexual activity, that is celibacy. Then abstinence from lying, abstinence from alcohol and intoxicants, abstinence from eating after noon, abstinence from any entertainment like dancing, singing, music, and also decorations like wearing garlands, perfumes, and cosmetics. And the 8th precept is abstinence from sleeping on high or luxurious beds. When we talk about morality sila for the Buddhist monastics, the Buddhist monks and Buddhist nuns, novice monks and nuns, they have to observe 10 precepts. The Buddhist monks who have had higher ordination, that is Upasampada, they have to observe 227 rules of discipline. Buddhist nuns who have had higher ordination have to observe 311 rules of discipline. And I'm not going to describe the disciplinary rules for the Buddhist monks or the Buddhist nuns here. So the first step in the Buddhist path of liberation is morality, sila. The second step is concentration, samadhi. So right morality is necessary for right concentration. So what is concentration? Now, concentration is one-pointedness of the mind, undistracted, unscattered mind. By focusing one's attention on meditation objects, a concentrated mind is very calm, tranquil, and peaceful. In the Buddhist literature, 40 meditation objects have been described, which are suitable for concentration meditation. And they are 10 kasina or devices, 10 types of foulness, 10 contemplations or recollections, 4 divine abodes, 4 immaterial spheres, perception of the loathsomeness of food, and analysis of the 4 elements. Now, the 10 kasinas, that is using meditation objects such as earth element, water element, fire element, wind, and colors such as blue, yellow, red, white, and also using light and space as meditation objects. And the 10 types of foulness are 10 stages in the decomposition of a corpse. The 10 recollections are recollecting qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dhamma, the doctrine, qualities of the Sangha, the community of noble disciples, recollection of morality, generosity, heavenly beings, death, loathsome parts of the body, in-breath and out-breath, that's anapanasati, and qualities of peace or nibbana. The four divine abodes are loving kindness, that's metta, compassion, karuna, sympathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekha. Now, the four immaterial spheres are the spheres that can be attained through concentration meditation, and they are sphere of boundless space, akasananchayatana, sphere of boundless consciousness, viññānañcāyatana, sphere of nothingness, akinchanyayatana, and sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, neva sanya, na sanyayatana. Perception of the loathsomeness of food is also a meditation object. And finally, analysis of the four base elements, that's earth element, patavi, water element, apo, fire element, tejo, and wind element, vayu. Now, when one concentrates the mind on a meditation objects, as the concentration deepens, mental defilements called hindrances, mental hindrances, they get suppressed. And these mental hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness as remorse, and skeptical doubt. And as the mental hindrances get suppressed, 5 positive mental factors called jhana factors develop. And they are initial application, vitakka, sustained application, vichara, rapture, preeti, happiness, sukha, and one-pointedness with equanimity, that's ekaggata with upekha. And development of these jhana factors indicate that one is developing deep mental absorptions. They are also called jhana. And there are 8 jhanas that one can attain. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. These 4 jhanas are fine material states, rupa jhana. And then one can go on to develop 4 immaterial or formless states. And the Buddha has often discussed in discourses that the well-concentrated mind, samadhi, is essential to develop wisdom, that's panya, into reality of things. So the first stage is morality, sila. Second stage is concentration, samadhi. And the final and third step of the Buddhist path of liberation is wisdom, panya. And right concentration leads to right wisdom. In the Buddhist literature, 3 types of wisdom have been described. Firstly, wisdom that's gained by listening to the teaching from others, or by reading the scriptures, or having Dhamma discussions. And this wisdom is called Suttamaya Panya. When one has Suttamaya Panya, when one has listened and learned the Buddha's teaching, then one starts thinking about it, intellectually analyzing it. And the wisdom gained through that intellectual analysis is called Chintamaya Panya. And finally, the final wisdom is gained through direct experience by practicing insight meditation. And that's called Bhavanamaya Panya. So Bhavanamaya Panya, the experiential wisdom, is the true wisdom. And that is the wisdom that one needs to develop in order to transcend all the suffering and attain the state of Nibbana. The most basic mental defilements that causes all the suffering is ignorance. So key to liberate from suffering lies in developing its direct opposite, and that is wisdom. So we can say wisdom is really the direct antidote to the ignorance that underlies all the suffering. Through wisdom, one can see the true reality of all mental and physical phenomena. So what is the true reality of all mental and physical phenomena? They have three universal characteristics. And that is each and everything in this universe is transitory and impermanent, anicca. They all lead to suffering or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. And none of them have any permanent entity called a soul or self, anatta. Now, insight meditation can also be described as mindfulness meditation. Now, we can define mindfulness as the mindful awareness of one's experience as it manifests from moment to moment in the immediate present without reacting or making any judgments. And as you know, right mindfulness, samma sati, is the seventh factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. And the techniques of mindfulness meditation are described by the Buddha in the Satipatthana Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya. And as we said before, it consists of four foundations of mindfulness: contemplation of the body, kaya anupassana; contemplation of feelings, vedana anupassana; contemplation of the mind, chitta anupassana; and contemplation of the mind objects, dhamma anupassana. As one practices insight meditation, and when one advances in insight meditation, certain spiritual faculties develop in the meditator. And there are 5 such spiritual faculties. And that is faith, saddha, energy or effort, virya, mindfulness, sati, concentration, samadhi, and wisdom, panya. And when these 5 spiritual faculties are fully developed, they become spiritual powers or strengths. And as the meditator progresses in insight meditation, 7 factors of enlightenment called Sapta Bojjhanga developed. And the 7 factors of enlightenment are mindfulness, sati; investigation of dhammas, dhamma energy or effort, virya; joy, piti; tranquility, passaddhi; concentration, samadhi; and equanimity, upekkha. Now, Buddha has described 10 fetters, dasa sangyojana, which are mental defilements, or they are like chains or shackles that bind us to the cycle of birth and death, the samsara. And the 10 fetters are self-identity view, sakkaya ditthi; skeptical doubt, vichikiccha; attachment to mere rites and rituals, silabbata paramasa; sensual desire, kamaraga; ill will, patiga; desire to be born in fine material Brahma worlds, ruparaga; desire to be born in formless Brahma worlds, aruparaga; conceit, mana; restlessness, uddhacha; and ignorance, avijja. Now we have to eradicate the 10 fetters on a gradual basis as we progress in the Buddhist path of liberation. And when a meditator cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path as advised by the Buddha, one can attain enlightenment in 4 progressive stages. The first stage is stream enterer, Sotapanna. Second stage is once returner, Sakadagami. Third stage is non-returner, Anagami. And the final stage of enlightenment is Arahant. Now, the first stage of enlightenment, the stream enterer, has eradicated 3 fetters completely, and that is self-identity view, Sakkaya Ditti, skeptical doubt, Vichikicha, and attachment to mere rites and rituals, Srila Buddha Paramas. And a stream enterer has also weakened the 3 unwholesome roots of greed, raga, ill will, dosa, and delusion, moha, to such an extent that a stream enterer will not commit any unwholesome actions that can cause rebirth in any of the 4 worlds of suffering. A stream enterer is able to attain enlightenment in the same life, for otherwise the Buddha has said a stream enterer will definitely gain enlightenment within a maximum of 7 further births, either in the human world or heavenly worlds. Now, the second stage of enlightenment is once returner, Sakadagam. Now, a once returner has eradicated the first 3 fetters of self-identity view, skeptical doubt, and attachment to mere rites and rituals. And once returner has also weakened the next 2 fetters of sensual desire and ill will. And once returner will not be reborn in any of the worlds of suffering. And if one doesn't attain enlightenment in the same life, a once returner will reborn only once more, either in the human or heavenly worlds, before gaining enlightenment. The third stage of enlightenment is non-returner, Anagama. A non-returner has completely eradicated the first 5 fetters, and that is self-identity view, skeptical doubt, attachment to mere rites and rituals, sensual desire, and ill will. And a non-returner will not be reborn again in any of the sensual worlds. If one doesn't attain enlightenment in the same life, a non-returner after death will be reborn in one of the 5 Brahma worlds called pure abodes, Suddhavasa, and attains enlightenment and Nibbana there. So the final stage of enlightenment is Arahant. And Arahant has eradicated all the 10 fetters completely. So an Arahant is fully enlightened, has completed the Buddhist path of liberation from suffering with no more rebirths. So an Arahant has attained Nibbana in this life itself. According to the Buddha's teaching, each one of us has to cultivate this Buddhist path for our own liberation. No one else, not even the Buddha, can do it for us. And in verse 160 of Dhammapada, that's a collection of Buddha's verses, the Buddha said, Attahi attano nato, kohi nato parosya. One indeed is one's own refuge. How can others be a refuge to one? Thank you very much.